Really? No. Okay, we can do that. Oh, whoops, gotta go. I'm taping a segment on cell phones. Welcome to Technically Speaking, the show for the technically challenged. Today we're talking about cell phones. Just 15 years ago, very few of us even had one, and most of us can't even live without them. So we're going to talk about the different types of cell phones, some features, tips, and tricks. But let's start by making sure we all know the terminology we're talking about. There are four major types of cell phones that we can use today. The first type is a flip phone. A flip phone is one that you have to open it up to press the keys. These are very convenient because on a flip phone, you're not in danger of the phone accidentally making a call while it's in your bag. Our second type is a slide phone. On a slide phone, your keyboard is going to slide out. Very convenient, especially if you have a full keyboard and we're talking about texting or sending messages or emails. Many phones nowadays are touch screen. Here's a touch screen phone. On a touch screen phone, you actually touch what you want to do on the phone. Makes it very simple without having to worry about buttons. And finally, phones that don't have any moving parts, no slides, no touches, would simply be a bar phone. The keys are right there on the front. Now, there are phones that are a combination of these types. For example, this phone here is a slide phone, and it's also a touch phone. So it does both. So those are our four major types of phones. Another term you might have heard of having to do with phones are smartphones versus a more traditional phone. Now, a smartphone is a phone that's actually a computer. Smartphones can surf the web, answer email, even watch movies and stream Skype calls. About half of all phones sold today are smartphones, so they really are in demand. A traditional phone is more equipped to simply making phone calls. It will usually come with a camera, an ability to save contacts and such, but it's not actually on the internet. Now, of course, there are positives and negatives to both. The smartphones can do more things. It's like actually carrying a computer in your bag. However, they are more expensive to buy, and they will also require an additional data plan. Meaning, if you pay a certain amount per month just for voice calls, if you're going to be accessing the internet, it can cost between $15 and up to $40 per month additional just to have that smartphone. But it is a convenience. The traditional phones are good at making calls, very solid, less money, and no monthly fees having to do with data. So that's something to consider. If you are going to be choosing a smartphone, you're going to see some of these terms used. These are operating systems. Droid, which is short for Android, iPhone, Windows. That's actually the software running the phone. People might say, I just got a Droid. But there is no phone that is a Droid phone. Droid is actually the system that runs inside the phone. So there are phones made by LG or Pantech or Motorola that are all running the Droid system. And just on a side note, Droid, short for Android, was first used in the Star Trek series. The Droid system was created because the iPhone system was so wildly popular. With the iPhone system, everything is visual. Everything you want to choose is right there on the screen. So they developed the Droid system as a competitive measure. There are many phones that run Windows, and people like Windows phones because their computer runs Windows, so there's a comfort level. BlackBerries run a type of Windows. It's geared specifically to BlackBerries, but again, you might feel a little more comfortable if it looks familiar. And finally, if you're in the market of buying a new phone, you have to think about whether you want to have a contract or no contract on your plan. A contract means that you would go to, say, Verizon or AT&T and sign a 2-year contract that you will keep that phone and you will pay a certain amount every month for the life of the contract. No contract means you're just paying a monthly fee, cancel anytime, you might even be paying by the minute. Now, of course, with all things, there's positives and negatives to everything. While the contract ties you in, it also means that the phone will be less expensive because the phone itself will be subsidized by that contract. For example, this is an iPhone. If you bought an iPhone with no contract, it would cost you at least $700 or $800. However, if you wanted the same phone and you signed a contract with Verizon or AT&T, you would get the phone for only $199. The rest of the money is being subsidized by the fact that you are signing a 2-year contract to pay at least $30 a month just for your data plan. Multiply that out, and they're getting $720 over the life of the phone. So they're making out quite well for themselves. So one reason you may want to go with a contract is you can get nicer, more cutting-edge phones for less. If you don't want a contract, you need to purchase the phone outright. And phones can be pricey if they're not subsidized. Another good reason for having a contract is because if you have multiple phones, for example, we have 5 people in our family with cell phones, and after the first phone, each additional phone is only $5 or $10. Much better that way. But finally, with no contract, you have the flexibility. You can cancel at any time, and that's a wonderful thing for many people. If you are going to be getting a new cell phone, please don't throw away the old cell phone. Inside of a cell phone are many chemicals and mechanical parts and electronics that would really clutter up the landfills and cause some environmental damage. So rather than throw it away, you have some options. One option is you can go on the web to cellphonesforsoldiers.com. They'll take your cell phone, refurbish it, and send it off to somebody who's in need, perhaps even in the Army in the war zone. Another option is stores such as Best Buy or Staples have a bin right there when you walk in where you could drop off old cell phones and they'll take care of them. Gazelle.com is a website that buys back cell phones and other electronics. You could type in your model number and they'll let you know what price they'll give you and you ship it off. And finally, when you're purchasing that new phone, they probably have a bin or someplace there at the store that they'll take your old cell phone and dispose of it properly. So now that we know all about cell phones, let's talk about some of the features.